Sometimes the most powerful lessons do not come with noise or drama. They come quietly, carried in the hands of those we least expect. This is the story of an old man, an envelope, and a bank full of people who thought they already knew the worth of every soul who walked through their doors. What unfolded became a reminder that arrogance can destroy careers, but respect can build legacies. The day began like any other inside Crescent Bank. The lobby glistened with polished floors, chandeliers hanging above, the faint hum of computers and the shuffle of papers filling the air. Men in sharp suits adjusted their ties, women in tailored dresses tapped at their phones. Behind the counters, employees sat upright, busy with transactions, their eyes quick to measure every customer by their clothes, their watches, their shoes. Into this world of gloss and polish stepped an elderly man. His pace was slow but steady, each step guided by a wooden walking stick. His clothes were plain, his shoes worn from years of use. In his other hand, he held a small, weathered envelope pressed close to his chest. His presence immediately disturbed the rhythm of the room. Conversations paused, glances shot across the hall, whispers began to circle like restless birds. The old man's name was Abdul Karim. His face was calm, lined by time, his eyes heavy with both fatigue and quiet strength. He made his way toward the counter, ignoring the stares and the faint chuckles that followed him. He placed the envelope gently on the counter and waited. The young employee seated there looked at him, not with kindness but with irritation. She shifted the envelope aside as if it were unimportant and told him to wait. Her eyes said what her words did not. You do not belong here. Whispers grew louder. A few customers smirked. Others muttered that the man must have lost his way, that he had no right to be in such a bank where only the wealthy kept their accounts. Still, Abdul Karim did not react. He simply nodded, stepped aside, and sat on a chair in the corner of the lobby. His hands rested on his walking stick, his gaze lowered to the floor. Around him, the noise of disapproval carried on. Some mocked, some dismissed, yet he sat in silence. Minutes turned to nearly an hour. Abdul Karim continued to wait patiently, while no one offered him a seat of honor, no one asked if he needed water, no one cared for his dignity. Finally, he stood again and made his way to the manager's office. The manager, Shahid, had already noticed him earlier and judged him with a single glance. As the old man approached, Shahid stepped out with arrogance. His expression carried nothing but disdain. He told him he had nothing worth checking, that people like him wasted the time of busy men. He insisted that the account must be empty. The old man, calm as ever, asked only that his account be checked once. But the manager laughed, declaring that years of experience allowed him to know who was rich and who was poor just by looking at their faces. Without protest, Abdul Karim placed the envelope on the desk, turned and walked toward the door. As he left, his voice was quiet yet firm. He said that every action carries consequences. And then he was gone, leaving behind whispers and uneasy glances. Later that afternoon, Junior Officer Imran returned from outside. He had noticed the old man earlier, sitting patiently in the lobby while others ridiculed him. Something about the man's calmness had unsettled him. When Imran saw the envelope still lying untouched, he picked it up. He entered the details into the bank system, expecting little, but what he discovered shook him. The name on the account was Abdul Karim. Linked to that name were records of massive holdings, including 60% ownership of Crescent Bank itself. Imran's heart raced as he printed the documents. He carried them to the manager and explained who the man was, but Shahid dismissed him immediately, waved the papers away, and told him not to waste time on nonsense. Imran stood stunned, realizing arrogance had blinded the man completely. He tucked the records back into his folder, knowing the truth would not stay hidden. The next morning, Crescent Bank awoke to routine once again. Customers filled the lobby, employees settled into their desks, and Shahid walked with the confidence of someone who thought yesterday was already forgotten. But when the doors opened and Abdul Karim entered once again, the room fell silent. This time he was not alone. Walking beside him was a man in a dark suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Their steps echoed across the marble floor like thunder. All eyes turned as the pair approached the manager's office. Shahid straightened his coat and forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed unease. Abdul Karim stopped in front of him. His voice was steady, his presence commanding. He told the manager that the time for consequences had arrived. The man with the briefcase opened it and laid documents on the desk. The first was a promotion letter naming Imran as the new branch manager. The second was a transfer order for Shahid, sending him to field duty effective immediately. Gasps rippled across the hall. Employees leaned forward, customers whispered loudly. Shahid's face drained of color as sweat gathered on his brow. He stumbled over words, begging for forgiveness, insisting it was a misunderstanding. But Abdul Karim's gaze was unwavering. He reminded him that this bank had been founded on equality, that no one was to be judged by their appearance, that every customer deserved dignity. The values had been written into the very policy of the bank from its inception. Shahid had failed those values, and failure had consequences. Abdul Karim then turned to the staff, his voice carrying through the silent hall. He told them all to remember this day, to remember that wealth is not measured by clothing, that respect costs nothing, and that arrogance destroys everything it touches. He called forward the clerk who had dismissed him. Her head lowered, her hands trembled. Abdul Karim forgave her as it was her first mistake, but he warned her never again to judge a man by his appearance. She wept, promising to remember. And then Abdul Karim left, his walking stick tapping against the marble, his envelope once again in his hand. The room remained silent long after the doors closed behind him. Customers carried the story out into the city. Employees whispered of the lesson. Within hours, the tale spread like wildfire. The story of an old man mocked for his clothes who turned out to be the true owner of the bank. The story of a manager brought low by arrogance and a junior officer lifted high by respect. The story of a moment when silence became more powerful than wealth. Inside Crescent Bank, everything changed. Never again did employees sneer at plain clothes. Never again did whispers rise when someone walked in without wealth on display. They remembered that dignity is priceless, that the richest man may arrive in the simplest attire, and that respect withheld can return as punishment greater than imagined. Abdul Karim returned to his quiet life, but the echo of his footsteps remained in that bank forever. His presence lingered in the eyes of employees, in the careful tones of clerks, in the cautious humility of managers. Every person who entered was served with dignity, not because of rules written on paper, but because of a lesson carved into memory. And so the story stands as a warning and a guide. Appearances deceive. Arrogance blinds. Respect belongs to everyone. Never judge by what you see, for the truth may be far greater than your imagination. If this story moved you, like the video. Subscribe to Crowdi Tailies for more powerful stories that strike the heart. And write respect first in the comments if you watched until the end. Because sometimes the richest man in the room wears the simplest clothes. And sometimes the greatest lesson arrives quietly, in the hands of an old man holding nothing more than a walking stick and an envelope.